Hello everyone, today I want to give you some advice on how to learn Chinese easy and fast. I've been living in China for more than 4 years, and when I came to China I couldn't speak one single word of Chinese, and after 1 year I passed the HSK4 test, which is grade 4 out of 6, which is actually not too bad. And I have to say, I was working full time and I had no Chinese teacher. So let me give you some advice on how to learn Chinese easy and fast. There is many ways to learn Chinese, as we have so many books and manuals that tell you how to learn Chinese. You can start with that. It should be no problem at all. But maybe after a while, you will figure out that Chinese books and Chinese manuals are not the optimum to learn Chinese with. Even if you have professional Chinese classes, you might be frustrated after a while and you could feel like, I'm doing no progress here at all. So let me tell you something. If you want to learn something new and something difficult, a difficult language like Chinese, you need a lot of motivation. So how do you get the motivation? You know, when your brain is really interested in learning something new, when you're like really fascinated by something, this is when you can learn very fast. If you are in China, I highly recommend you to look for someone who is Chinese and maybe can speak your language. And if you are not in China, if you're in your home country, the US, Great Britain, Germany, France, wherever, I also recommend you to look for a Chinese to learn Chinese with him. Now, how do you do that? Before you meet anyone, you should do a list of sentences you are interested in. Sentences you want to know how to use them in Chinese language. This is very important, because if you want to learn how to say something you are really interested in, this is when your brain gets really like the satisfaction and the fascination of learning something new, although it is difficult in the beginning. So my third advice for you is you should learn sentences not only you're interested in, but also sentences you will need on a daily basis, because the more you say something or the more you remember something, the harder it is to forget those sentences. So not only are you highly motivated in like wanting to know how do you say that in Chinese, but also you will see that sentences and meet those situations on a daily basis. And this is actually what I want to give you here on my channel. We want to learn the Chinese you will really use, because this is the Chinese you will need every day, and that keeps you going on revision and repeating and remembering all the stuff you've learned. You know what I'm saying? And this is the effect most of the time you won't get with textbooks, because textbooks very often don't teach you the stuff you want to use in an everyday conversation, in an everyday shopping tour, in an everyday visit to a restaurant. You know, this is what textbooks usually won't teach you. How do you get the sentences you're interested in? If you have absolutely no idea what you could use in your daily life, you can check out my channel frequently. I will post new videos on situations you will need every day, or you can have a look at some apps for your mobile phone, for example like Hello Chinese or Duolingo. They are both okay. Me personally, I never learned anything with apps. I never used them. I'm more like a paper guy, you know. It depends. If you like the books more and the paper, then you could use this. Also, what I recommend are travel guides, you know, like this Easy Chinese, Pocket Chinese, stuff like this, where you can find some of the most used sentences you will need in China. And if there are some sentences you're interested in, write them down. Write them down in English, and you can also write down the Pinyin, the Chinese written in our alphabet, and you can double check with your Chinese friend. Is it okay like this? And he will tell you how to pronounce those sentences. And what you want to do is just imitate him. Try to imitate his pronunciation as accurate as possible. Because when you learn Chinese, the pronunciation is crucial. Very, very, very important. This is why I recommend you to learn the pronunciation of those sentences you're interested in with the Chinese, because he can tell you if your pronunciation is correct or not, and if it's not, he can tell it to you the right way, and you can repeat it. When you don't get the tones right, the tones are very, very important in Chinese. If you don't get the tones right, the Chinese counterpart will not understand you. Number 5 of advice I would like to give you is that you should absolutely learn Chinese in sentences. Stay away from learning single words. It is completely useless. Say it in a sentence. This is a big advice I can give to you. If you don't know how to use this word you've just learned in Chinese, ask a Chinese guy for some advice. Ask him, could you use this word in a simple sentence for me? And then write this sentence down and learn this sentence. You know, it has 2 reasons. If you learn single words in a whole sentence, it will make it easier for you to remember them, because you will use the sentence very often, but not the single word. And it makes it easier for you to be understood by Chinese, because when you pronounce single words, sometimes the pronunciation of the tones is so crucial that even the Chinese won't understand you. But if you pronounce the new word you've just learned in a sentence, the Chinese people will see like the whole thing you want to say. You know, they will see your meaning like in a whole way, and they can see like what you actually want to refer to. As I already said, use everyday life situations, use sentences out of the daily life like we are teaching them on our channel. And my biggest and most important advice for you is, if you are starting to learn Chinese, maybe for the first year, try to ignore the Chinese characters completely. Try to ignore Chinese characters. Why? When you learn Chinese, you basically learn 3 or 4 languages at the same time. First, you want to know how to say this sentence in Chinese. So you have to remember the pronunciation. Not enough with that, you have to write it down. But you cannot use your English to write down the Chinese, because if you, for example, ni hao is hello, you cannot write H-O-W. This is not how the Chinese write the Pinyin. The Pinyin is the Chinese, how it is pronounced. You have to learn this alphabet, and also you should learn how to use the tones very, very soon. So you have to learn how to pronounce this word, which is already very, very important. Correct pronunciation is very important. Then you will learn how to write the sentence down in our alphabet using the Chinese Pinyin, and then you will try to remember what those words actually mean on their own. And if you then, in the last step, want to start this whole thing with reading or writing Chinese characters, you will very, very soon realize that this is almost impossible. It is too much. It is probably possible. This is how Chinese people learn the Chinese, or if you study at university, this is also how you start learning Chinese, is having a look at the characters. Okay, that's fair enough. But I will tell you, your motivation is going to go down. There won't be any more motivation left if you start with the characters, because there is absolutely no way to figure out how to pronounce a Chinese character. There is absolutely no way to see how to pronounce this word. There is some words you can see or you can guess what it means. That is possible. We will see that later in another video. But you don't have any possibilities to know how to pronounce this word. This is why it is, especially in the beginning, very, very important to have I suggest you to write maybe 300 or 500 sentences on your own. 500 sentences you're really interested in and you think you will use on an everyday basis. You have this list of sentences and you have the Pinyin next to it, right? And then you learn this Pinyin by heart. You learn by heart how to say these sentences in Chinese. You don't know how to read them. You don't know how to write them. It does not matter. First thing we want to have is Chinese speaking skills, because this will motivate you. This will keep you going. You can talk to a Chinese guy, he will be impressed with you. If you can write Chinese, no one cares. Really, no one cares. And what I want to recommend you, maybe after 1 year of learning, so you've maybe learned 500, maybe 600 sentences, which is pretty good. You can already pass the HSK2 or the HSK3. You don't need a lot of Chinese characters for that. For the HSK1 and HSK2 level, you don't need to read any Chinese characters at all. They are all with Pinyin to help you. So this is very, very easy. The HSK3 is when you need some simple Chinese characters. And you can do that maybe after 1 year, I would suggest. And then how do you start? You take your Chinese friend again and you ask him, how do I write this this sentence I've written in Pinyin? How do you actually write this with Chinese characters? And he writes it down for you. Maybe on the computer. This is much, much better than handwritten, so you can read it better. And he does this with every sentence. And then you start analyzing. You will start analyzing. For example, you have your sentence on the left, maybe written in English. You have your sentence in the middle, written on Pinyin. And you have your sentence on the right, written with Chinese characters. And then you start analyzing. For example, you can see you means ni. And then you have a look at the Chinese character. And you can look at other sentences and you will find the character again. And suddenly you can read your first character. It goes so fast. You see another character, Hao, and you see this character. Maybe you can work with colors. You can give it a yellow color or whatsoever. And then you look at the other sentences and you will see you are able to read the character Hao, good. And then you will see maybe Ma, the question. And you will be able to read this one, and you go step by step, and it goes very, very fast. It's like a snowball effect. You will be able to recognize more and more Chinese characters. And why is that? It's because you already have a very, very strong foundation. You know what the Chinese word means, you know how to pronounce it, and then you start connecting the Chinese character, the image of the Chinese character, with the pronunciation you've already learned and the meaning in English you've already learned. Isn't this beautiful? This is how you should learn Chinese. This is the way that I experienced for me was the best. It took me 5 or 6 months until I finally figured out how to learn Chinese in a proper way. You know, I took Chinese classes twice or thrice, you know, and then I figured out, wow, that's a big waste of time. I don't want to learn how to write Chinese characters for the rest of my life. I'm living in China for 2 months and I can't even order a Coke in the restaurant. It's a waste of time. You want to learn the Chinese you're interested in, that keeps you going, that keeps you motivated. And with this, you find a good foundation. And there will be Chinese people trying to convince you that you should start learning Chinese by writing Chinese characters without even knowing how to pronounce them, without even knowing what they mean. And I'm telling you, after 6 months, maybe you can write 50 or 60 Chinese characters, but you cannot order a Coke in the restaurant. It is a complete waste of time. This is not working for adults. It's not working for foreigners. When you are a Chinese kid and you learn Chinese this way, that's no big deal. That's okay. This is how you can learn Chinese as a kid, as a Chinese kid. But when you are an adult and you want to learn Chinese, this is not a very good approach, in my opinion. So, next step, to reinforce your writing skills. Let me tell you one thing. Chinese is almost never written by hand. And I guess now I've been in China for almost 5 years, more than 4 years. Occasions where you have to write Chinese by hand are so rare that you can almost ignore them. I'm telling you. Well, how do you use Chinese? Chinese writing. How do you write Chinese? I highly recommend you to download WeChat on your mobile phone and to activate the Chinese mode of writing, the Chinese writing template, and then you can just start to type. You just type Ni Hao, N-I-H-A-O, and you will see suddenly the characters will appear, and you can double check your reading skills and then choose, okay, this Ni Hao is the correct one, and you type on this one and you've written it. And this is actually how you can also improve your reading skills, writing with mobile phone apps, or maybe if you are an Office or Word user, you can just install this plugin on your Word, the Chinese plugin, and you can activate the Chinese language on your control panel in Windows, for example, and then you just type stuff. For example, 我爱你, I love you. And you will see what does the program suggest you. And you have to double check, is this the right is this the right love? Is this the right character the program is suggesting me? And let me tell you, this is basically the most frequent way you will have to write Chinese for the rest of your life. If you look up stuff in dictionaries, I highly recommend Pleco for your mobile phone. It's P-L-E-C-O. You can use it to look for Chinese words and English words whatsoever. And also there you will write Chinese characters by using the Pinyin, which is very useful. Also on Pleco you can draw. You can write some real Chinese characters with your finger and try to figure out the meaning. But yeah, this is my biggest advice for you. You will write Chinese on the computer or on the mobile phone, not by hand. Don't start learning Chinese by starting to learn how to write Chinese characters. It is an absolute disaster. This is how people wanted me to start. I wasted a lot of time with that. I quit my classes. I had a full-time job. I had no teacher, no Chinese teacher, and I was doing progress very fast. Everyone is different. Maybe you don't like this method, but in my personal opinion, this is the easiest and the best and the fastest way to learn Chinese. I hope you like this video. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe and give me a thumbs up. There will be many, many more videos on how to learn Chinese. See you next time. Bye bye. 再见.